Nicole Larson Live, living in victory every day.
Today's guest shares on the need to provide care and support for families facing crisis situations.
You, and I've known you for so many years, you going for them. You know, it's only a call, you will rescue, you know, and da-da-da-da, and you're going. But I want to find out about that passion. Where did it come from?
Well, you know, I've thought about that a lot. I think it's a combination of my family upbringing and my faith.
Also, mental health coach Robin Atkins joins us from the USA. From the desk of author June Doyle, music from Ayanna Wallace make for another impacting show. Nicole Larson Live, living in victory every day. Stay with us. Live a life of victory and find peace and hope in today's troubled world. Visit us at Holiness Revival Ministries. Call 628-7407 or 622-5826.
Gen Style customizes cards, limitless in expressions. For all special occasions, call 1-868-7N-STYLE. Instagram Gen Style Cards TT, Facebook at Gen Style.
Take some time for yourself or spend some time with the family at Sandy Point Village Hotel. Enjoy our various studio and suite apartments, self-contained with their own kitchenettes and Wi-Fi. We also have our famous 100-foot swimming pool and our beachfront restaurant, The Steak and Lobster Grill. And our location in Crown Point puts us near the center of activity from the nylon pool to the local nightlife. Call us and make your reservations at 639-8533, 389-2378 or email us at sandypointvillagehotel@gmail.com.
This is Nicole Larson Live, living in victory every day. And we have a very special guest joining us. I am so delighted to have Rebecca Ali-Govaya. Welcome.
Thank you for having me. It's a delight to be here.
And for those who may not know who you are affiliated. As a matter of fact, you are the founder of the Elpis Center.
Yes, along with my husband, yes.
Yeah. Let's talk about the Elpis Center just a little bit for those who may not be aware as to what you do, why you do, you know, give us the genesis.
Sure. Well, Elpis Center has been around since 2009, and we do various ministries, but if I have to summarize, I'd say we are working in the areas where women and children need the most amount of support, love, and care. So we do transitional housing for displaced mothers and their children. We do risk avoidance programs for young people so that they could achieve their goals and avoid, you know, unhealthy choices that would take them down a path of vulnerabilities and destruction. And then we do healing for women. So we have a variety of healing programs. We do psychological counseling. We do forgiven and set free for post-abortion healing. We do another one, it's a new one we introduced called Refuge, which is a general grief recovery for stillbirth, miscarriage, infant loss, and in just general loss. Like during COVID, I mean, women experienced losses from jobs and their homes and relationships. So we've been using that, and soon we'll be introducing a Bible study for sexual abuse healing as well.
You know, as you speak, you mentioned women making the wrong choices, going down different directions and so forth, which we all have at some point in time, let's face it. But some of us are not privy to the people to hold us and say, come, I know you make a mistake, let me show you the right direction. But you, and I've known you for so many years, you going for them. You know, it's only a call, you will rescue, you know, and da-da-da-da, and you're going. But I want to find out about that passion. Where did it come from?
Well, you know, I've thought about that a lot. I think it's a combination of my family upbringing and my faith background as well. I believe that our purpose on this earth is not just to live for ourselves, right? And you know, if I think back even to my grandmother, she was a rescuer too. You know, as a matter of fact, she rescued herself when she was about 12 or 13. She was, you know, married off to someone, and she said, no, I'm not, you know, going to accept this, and she left and built the life that she wanted and helped a lot of families after that. So Yeah, I think it's a combination of my upbringing and just, what God has said to me. And why I'm so concerned about, women and children in particular is because I think, and I've learned over the years, that where they are is not just a quote-unquote choice. It's a combination of things that have taken them down a certain path where the choices that they end up making lead them into some sort of destructive lifestyle. But it's not a quote-unquote choice that they... In other words, it's not like, well, I feel like eating chocolate ice cream today instead of strawberry.
Yeah.
It's not that type of choice. We have women with unimaginable histories, neglect, abandonment, abuse, trauma, that leads them down a path. And then when they get to these major crossroads in their lives where they have to make decisions, the ability to choose the decision that would probably be in their best interest in the future becomes compromised. And so we have to be there to help guide them through.
And so we're going to be talking about women navigating the crisis of choice. Because I'm glad you said that. It's not as if they get up one day and say, you know what, I'm going to go this way. I know it's wrong, but it's okay.
It's not so
It's not so cut and dry. It's not so clear cut.
No.
And so for those of us who may know just a little better, this is our time now to walk alongside. Let's see how we can do. And also walk the talk and talk the walk.
Yeah.
All right. And that's one of the things that I admire about you and your team. It's because when somebody calls you and they say, listen, I need, you go out there and you say, what do you need? How can I help? It could be a crib. It could be a bed.
Yeah.
It could be a place where they need to hide for a few days.
Yep, we've done all of that.
Yeah.
Months sometimes. Some families, we've supported them for as long as 2 years, because transitioning from where you are to where you need to be is a unique journey for everybody. You know, some people might just need a few days.
Yeah.
Some people need months. Some people need years.
Yeah.
And so we need to have care and support systems that can really meet people where they are at and move them to where they even want to be. And sometimes, honestly, it's helping them craft the vision of where they need to be. You see, we assume that people would just, you know, somehow a light bulb will just turn on and they'll, oh, yeah, this is where I need to be. No, sometimes that in itself is a journey.
And you journey alongside them. I've seen you do that. Because there are many times you would be with someone and you're trying to, I don't know, you're trying to make sure that they go on the right path. But lo and behold, you realize that they're not. So they're undermining you, as it were. I remember a couple instances where you would have, there was a situation with a husband and wife, and you had they were separated. And so we were trying to make sure that they have, you know, court proceedings, etc. And she was behind our backs, still seeing the abuser. But you didn't give up on her. You just smiled and you said, okay, this is part of the process. Okay, so let's see if we can do it again. She went back with the individual, Rebecca, and you still were alongside her. And this is what we need. We need people not to give up when, for whatever reason, they're not doing what we would expect them to do, because we're not perfect, we're human beings.
And more than that, I think we need an educated society. We need an informed and educated society if we are to help each other. Even when it comes to abuse, the ability to leave is not cut and dry either. And the research shows that it takes multiple attempts before they could actually make that final exit. So there is a need, I think, in general, for us in the Caribbean and in Trinidad to have more understanding of the dynamics and the complex layers that go behind some of the social issues we are seeing. If we understand it, we could respond better and have more success, I think.
I want us to talk a little bit about that crisis pregnancy, because this is crucial. And the fact that you offer choice. It's not cut and dry that this is what you need to do. You are saying to them, okay, this is not the way you should go, but guess what? I've got a support mechanism there for you. So we'll be talking about that as we go along.
Sure. Well, you know, again, you know, there's a saying, don't make a decision with long-term consequences based on immediate emotional response or limited data. You know, and in the medical field, you might hear the term informed consent. And, you know, when a woman is in a pregnancy that either maybe just the timing is off, or in general, she, for some reason, she has not, pre-prepared for it, right? It can and it does raise multiple questions. For even the best of us, in the best of circumstances, there are questions. Okay, what now? Because there is this life that I now have to think about. And so the thing is, how do we journey with a woman who is in that place? And the statistics show that, apart from the hard cases, and when I say hard cases, I'm talking about rape, incest, fetal abnormality, or the mother's life is at risk, which is about 2% overall of pregnancies.
More still to come.
There's so many societal attitudes about life, almost flippant views. Well, you're poor, so why are you having children? Or you're in a certain geographic area, why are you having children?
FanZone, your reliable, authentic supplier, has just gotten better. You can now visit our website www.fanzonett.com for your authentic wear and collectibles. The only place where you can use both your Visa debit and credit cards. Visit our website fanzonett.com to make your purchase today.
Is it politics? What is it? Is it that nobody cares about sports?
The kind of support that sport used to get in the past is no longer here.
The thing is, taking a knee doesn't mean that that's the only thing you're doing now.
Right.
Taking a knee along with other stuff.
Samantha, what are you looking forward to when you return home to Trinidad and Tobago after winning the title?
Thank you very much for speaking it into existence.
Is there no pressure on Nicholas Ball?
It makes me more motivated to work hard and to go out there and rep the white and black.
Why are we sending a team to the Winter Olympics?
There are a number of Trinbagonians who are in the diaspora and have grown up in winter sport. It's an opportunity that the Trinidad and Tobago Olympic Committee will not close the door on.
I also believe in the players that we have. Once you can motivate the players, you can get the best out of them.
Live a life of victory and find peace and hope in today's troubled world. Visit us at Holiness Revival Ministries, call 628-7407 or 622-5826.
Just before our break, you were talking about the crisis pregnancy. When a woman finds herself pregnant, what does she do? Where does she go?
Well, she can certainly call the Alpha Center. But there are, other persons that she may want to call on in the first instance. But what the statistics show is that over 95% of the cases where women find themselves in a situation where they proceed with an abortion is because they say there was no support. Support and family involvement. So it's a combination, not just support from the family, but support in general. There are women we've been doing this for more than 12 years, but women face so many reasons to not have that baby. They're presented with so many reasons.
Give us some of those reasons.
I'm in school. I don't want to delay my studies. I just started my career. If I have this baby now, what will it do with my career? It will interrupt my career. My partner doesn't want this baby. 58% of the women who aborted said it was because they felt their partner, they felt that, it was imposed on them. And about 28 or 30% say it's because their partner did not want the baby. So
support is crucial.
Oh, yeah.
That undergirding, knowing that you're not alone.
Crucial.
You're not going through this process by yourself.
No. And the thing is, at least from our experience journeying with women, once they have that baby, they don't even need you anymore. There is something about that window of time between getting that positive pregnancy test to giving birth that requires, as you put it, undergirding. It requires scaffolding. It requires support. No pregnant woman should be left on her own. Even if you think that she has the best support system around her from the outside looking in, she still needs an encouraging word. She still needs an affirmation. She still needs, congratulations. She still needs journeying with. And that's something I pray for, and I hope that our society could do more of. There are women who even said to us, look, we had the abortion because of the church. You know, we didn't want to embarrass someone, either a parent or a pastor or and this is not to cast aspersion on the church at all. I'm just saying these are reasons
Different
that they have
reasons.
given,
Yeah.
right? And the question is, you know, I always ask then, are we really doing enough? You know, and what maybe even from the church's point of view, they need to be asking, well, what can we do better to
So
help?
here's the thing. I want to pinpoint there. We have heard that depending on the amount of children that you have, if you get pregnant, you're allowed to get rid of this one because I mean,
Sound
you
like
already have 5 or 6.
Right.
You already have 6 children. You get pregnant again. What is a joke now? No, that's the sort of, so it's any, mini, miny. Okay, no, this one isn't worth it. So let's get rid of this one.
Yeah, there's so many societal attitudes about life, you know, almost flippant views. Well, you're poor, so why are you having children? Or you're in a certain geographic area, why are you having children? Or as you said, you have 6, 7, 8, why are you having more? And the question, you know, my thing to persons who would have these views is I understand that knee-jerk reaction, but it requires further examination.
Yes. Yeah.
We have to be willing to examine further the things that we are believing, because the things that come out of our mouth is a reflection of what we believe inside. So then are we saying, you know, how is that different to eugenics in any way? You know, are we saying then that a poor person doesn't deserve to live and their children don't deserve to live, and so I am dictating to you that that child should die? It's the same thing with disability.
Yes.
You know, in the UK, thousands of children are aborted because of Down syndrome, and across the world, right? And that's just one. I mean, again, where do we draw the line? So today it might be Down syndrome, tomorrow it will be what? I just don't like how your parents look. We have to be careful how we draw these parameters around who deserves to live and who does not deserve to live.
And I think now we are actually in an era where we can choose whether we want a boy or a girl, blue eyes, brown eyes. So it's become very clinical.
We're commodifying life, and we have to be very careful about that.
Yeah.
And, you know, everybody needs to re-examine their thoughts and beliefs, because, you know, it may not be as extreme as someone saying, let's customize a baby in the womb. But are you in some way, shape, or form commodifying life?
But that's what we're doing. We're customizing children.
Yeah.
That's what we're doing in the womb. We're also choosing, I don't want my figure disrupted, so I'm going to give it to somebody else to have for me.
Right, yeah. Commodification.
Yeah.
And you know, listen, the most natural relationship in the world is mother, father, child.
Yeah.
That triangular relationship. It is above any law, you know, it's above any man-made creation. It's the most natural, organic relationship that there is. And we have to be willing to contend for that and preserve that. You know, the different ways that we want to commodify life will remove a child's best interest, because children need to connect with their biological family. It's hardwired into their DNA. You know, there's so much that, you know, currently go into it now, but there's so much we could go into on that.
But you know what? And as you've said that, this is one of the reasons why people would say that they're going to abort. Because you know what? I may not know who the child's father is. So why am I bringing this child into the world if he doesn't have a father? You know, so best, and I'm, you know, best we get rid of him. And here's another one. You know, this is what we use as the reason why we should have the child. Listen to this. We say, you don't know if this child is going to be a doctor, a lawyer, he could be a businessman, so have the child. So my thought pattern is, so what if he isn't any of those?
Exactly.
Does that mean that he isn't or she shouldn't be born?
No. Again, you see, we've moved away from the inherent dignity of the human being.
Yeah.
Right? Human beings have value just because they're human beings. Not who their mother is or their father is or isn't.
Yeah.
Or not because of what you think their potential would be, or probable potential. That's not what makes a human being valuable. They're valuable because they're intrinsically human.
That's it.
You know, and you know, for those of us who may have a faith point of view, it's clear that human beings are made in the image and likeness of God.
Yeah.
So we are all image bearers of God, regardless as to circumstances.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's about journeying with people who are in that crisis, because, you know, that's that situation. You may not know who the father is, but guess what? You definitely know who the mother is. You know, so how do we, there's someone who said, you know, the answer to a crisis pregnancy is responding to the crisis, not ending the life of the child. And this is what we need to work more towards. How do we help this woman and this father? Because sometimes it's not just the mom we have to focus on. For every pregnancy, there is a man involved, right? How do we support these people through this journey of bringing this life into the world and being the best possible? Yeah. Even if they aren't the best partners, but how can you still be the best possible parents, you know, to this child? And we need to...
I'm glad you made the point of the father, because I think sometimes they are sidelined.
All the time.
Because the fact is, you know, the mother is carrying the womb, she's carrying the child in her womb, and so therefore he was just maybe the sperm donor. That's how we look at it. So he doesn't have much say. Have you found that even as you counsel, that the men are saying, hey, Anyway, hold that thought. Sure. When we come back, we'll continue. This is Nicole Larson Live, living in victory every day.
More still to come from mental health coach Dr. Robin Atkins, a special song from Ayanna Wallace, and words of inspiration from author June Doyle.
Back on track with you. It is Nicole Larson Live, living in victory every day. My guest, of course, it is Rebecca Govaya of the Elpis Center. And just before the break, we were talking about men and being sperm donors, as it were, from the context of they don't have enough say.
So there's so many varieties to the situations that we deal with. I mean, the full gamut, from zero involvement, denial, I'm not the dad. So of course it means she goes through that pregnancy alone, because it's not until she gives birth can she do a DNA test to establish whether this gentleman is the father or not. So, you know, there's that all the way to the other spectrum where they desperately want to be involved, even against her having an abortion, or really want to be a part of the child's life. And maybe the mom doesn't want it. So there's so many varieties, but from the man's vantage point, in terms of that crisis pregnancy, we personally don't do a lot of direct counseling with the men, but we do bring them in as long as they're willing to journey with her through the pregnancy. Men do want to be involved. There are those obviously that don't, but there are many men who want to be involved. And I think, you know, the whole narrative about privacy of the body and controlling your womb and you're the one carrying the baby could make a man feel insecure. There was one piece of research where, you know, they surveyed both the men and the women after they had abortions, and the woman said, if he had only said, don't do it, I would not have done it, right? About 50%. And the men said, I wanted to tell her not to do it, but I figure she's carrying the baby, so if she says she wants to have the abortion, then I figure I just need to support. So you see, we find ourselves in this conundrum because we're not dialoguing enough about this issue. There's a lot of, you know, there's a saying, perception becomes more amplified than reality. And there isn't enough dialogue around finding common ground, you know, and coming together for the purpose of bringing this child into the world. There's a lot of polarizing that happens.
So in your estimation, is there a time where one should have an abortion? I am talking about a child, maybe 13, 14 years old, who is pregnant. And I know for a fact that you have had these type of calls and what you have done.
Yeah.
Because we have also seen, and even recently I saw this young lady saying, I was supposed to be aborted. My mother tried several times, and look at me now.
Yeah.
And she was saying, thank you God, that
it was unsuccessful.
It was unsuccessful. So we hear about these stories.
Yeah, there are hard cases, and of course there are lots of celebratory stories where attempts were not successful, or even the thought of doing it was not carried through. And you know, Nicole, there will always be these hard cases, because sometimes life is stranger than fiction.
Yeah.
And when it comes, though, because having an abortion ultimately is a medical decision. And I think what's missing sufficiently from the dialogue is medical care. What does this pregnant client need? What kind of care does this client need, this patient need? As opposed to just the ideological warfare over choice and age and, you know, gender and all these things, right? Ultimately, we have a patient, we have two patients actually, when you think about it. Whether it's a teenager who's 14 or, you know, someone who's been raped, there are two patients that you have in that room. How do we treat, care for, and ensure that we do no harm to both patients? You know, so if and this is, you know, I raised the issue of informed consent earlier. Informed consent is absolutely critical. There may be a case where, and it's very rare, where medically it's necessary to terminate the pregnancy in order to, you know, for the mother to be able to continue living. But it's rare. But again, it's a medical decision. You know, when it comes to teenagers, and there's one I remember in particular. And what happened with this young lady is that she kept being moved around from shelter to shelter in Trinidad, in government-run shelters, because no shelter would keep her long enough for the duration of the pregnancy. She was about 16. And the advice that she got from every shelter that she went to was have an abortion. So she had been to two or three shelters before coming to us. And her thing was, even as a young person, was, but I don't want an abortion, right? So when she came to us, I mean, we pretty much, that was her last stop. We housed her for the entire time and supported her through that. The thing about it is, again, are we just using narratives and drawing on whatever is in the air and assuming that this is best for the individual without proper consideration, without proper dialogue, without diagnosing properly, without informed consent? And let me tell you, the impact of an abortion on teens' mental health is way more significant from a negative perspective than on an older woman who has an abortion. You know, the rates of drug use, alcohol use and abuse, even addiction, promiscuity levels. And this is, I'm not just saying this based on the research that I've read, I'm saying this based on the lives that I've had to work with. It is a real thing.
So even the decision that we make as a woman, you know what, I'm pregnant, I don't want this child for whatever reason, it's not as if you're just getting rid of the problem. Because you may, quote unquote, get rid of this child, but he or she is part of you. And so there's psychological damage, there's mental, there's a lot, even physical.
There was a writing from a guy, Julius Fogel, he's an OBGYN and psychiatrist, and he was giving a testimony. And he said, listen, I have done thousands of abortions, and I'm you know, he'll probably continue doing them, but he said, there is no denying that the woman is impacted on a very deep level. A part of her humanity is touched, and she's never the same. And he said, I'm saying this as a psychiatrist, apart from just, you know, his job as an OBGYN where he was carrying out abortions. But he said, as a psychiatrist, I'm telling you, women are touched at a very deep level. And there's studies after studies after studies that even if we strip away extremes, and we come close to middle ground, or common ground, I should say, there is agreement that there is a mental health fallout for some women who do, in fact, carry out abortions. And there are actually factors that you could screen for, even before that woman makes that decision, to see if she's at higher risk from subsequent mental health issue or not. And that's not happening. Women are not being shown fetal development in that consultation room like they should be. They're not being given an opportunity to see an ultrasound, right? They're not explained, okay, if you make this choice, these are the possible consequences. And on top of that, part of informed consent is giving alternatives. So the discussion about adoption or parenting is not discussed with the patient to the same degree that they discuss or propose abortion. It's presented as a quick fix.
I'm glad that we have had this conversation, and we will continue to have these conversations to educate the public that there is choice, and the choice is life. And if they have an issue, if they need support in any way, you are willing. And I'm saying it, and I'm seeing you shaking your head because you're like, okay, Nicole, just run it. Yeah, let them know wherever you are. Give us some numbers and maybe an email that we can contact you.
So 383-2674, 383-2674, or elpiscenter@gmail.com. That's elpiscentre@gmail.com. Whether you need someone to journey with you through the pregnancy, or you've had an abortion and you need a confidential, safe space where there's zero judgment to just explore your emotions and explore where you're at and explore healing for that experience.
Rebecca, it's been a pleasure.
Thank
you so much. And of course, we'll be doing much more of these because I think it's important for us as a nation. Rebecca Aligavaya of the Elpis Center, bringing hope, bringing encouragement, bringing solace to you, a family, maybe someone who is pregnant. Know that you're not alone. You do not have to journey alone. This is Nicole Larson Live. We're living in victory every day.
More still to come. A touching song from Ayanna Wallace, and words of motivation from the desk of June Doyle.
Gen Style customizes cards, limitless in expressions. For special occasions, call 1-868-7N-STYLE. Instagram Gen Style Cards TT, Facebook @Gen Style.
Chez Jean Designs in San Fernando provides customized clothing from sassy to corporate, conservative to casual. Email janiskazo@gmail.com or call 793-1668 for consultations.
And now let's hear from today's expert, mental health coach, Dr. Robin Atkins.
So what we know from research is that there's a correlation between any type of reproductive loss and negative mental health outcomes. And depending on which research you pull from across the world, we see sometimes that stillbirth or miscarriage might have higher rates of mental health complications, or abortion has higher rates of mental health complications. But either way, from whatever research we pull, we definitely see at least a 50% increased risk of suicide after a reproductive loss. In addition, we can see increases in substance use and abuse. We can see increases in depression and anxiety. We often hear from mothers that they have difficulty parenting after an abortion, that they sometimes don't feel worthy of their children afterwards, or if they have a loss after an abortion, they'll feel that somehow retribution or karma for their abortion. And women often feel silenced when they have abortion regret or grief from abortion, because the popular commentary that we hear from the abortion industry is that abortion is fine and women are always fine afterwards. Women who do have negative outcomes often feel silenced, like they can't speak openly about those. And there are private abortion recovery groups all over the world with thousands of women in them talking about their regret and grief after abortion, sometimes as early as the next day, the day after their abortion. Oftentimes we'll see it's about 10 years later when women really start to notice the linear impacts of the abortion on other decisions in their life. For myself personally, I can say abortion deepened my addiction and my reckless behaviors, and it took years to recover from that. There are recovery programs available for those, and I do encourage women who are experiencing any type of reproductive loss or grief that they reach out and find some healing for that. There are programs like Deeper Still or Rachel's Vineyard for abortion, and there's other programs for reproductive loss And I would love to be a source for women in need of that. So they can always reach out to me via my email, or they can reach out to me at robin@applog.org. Thank you so much for inviting me on.
And now some motivation and inspiration from the desk of June Doyle.
Give yourself a break. Don't make yourself feel guilty for things you cannot control. Go easy on yourself. Think like Jesus, speak like Jesus, believe that whatever God allows has great potential to become your greatest win. Instead, fix your attention on God. You will be changed from the inside out. Don't allow life to drag you down to its level of immaturity. Make God bring the best out of you, developing you into a well-adjusted, mature adult. It is not what you have in life, but it's who you have in life that matters. Sometimes our life has to be completely shaken up, changed, and dismantled for God to take full reign in our lives. Embrace the lessons and keep hope alive. Not everyone will understand your journey. It's between you and God. This is June Doyle, author and motivational speaker, signing out. Keep hope alive. Let's make the world a better place for you and for me and for everyone.
Thank you, Jesus. Oh. You are stronger than you know. So much stronger than you think. There is nothing you can't do. Once you depend on the King. Oh, just believe. Just believe. Just believe. Step out on faith and just believe. You are the essence of this world. You are the light in this dark place. But you need to know your worth. You see, you've been chosen. You've been graced. Just believe. Out on faith and just believe. Here's what the Word of God says. You're above, you're not beneath. You're the head and not the tail. You're God's friend, you're no stranger. No, you're a son, you're not a slave. So it shouts, give me my mountain, just like Caleb did.
We thank all our guests today. Rebecca Aligavaya from the Elpis Center, mental health coach Dr. Robin Atkins, author June Doyle, and artist Ayanna Wallace. So until next time, wishing you a blessed and victorious week from Nicole Larson Live, living in victory every day.
Here in the south of France, final touches are being made to this research vessel, which is heading for a scientific expedition to the Atlantic Ocean. On board, crew members gather for a final inspection of Victor, a remotely operated underwater vehicle capable of operating at depths of up to 6,000 meters. Equipped with state-of-the-art technology, Victor produces high-quality videos and photos from the seabed that are then transmitted to the surface. It also has 2 mechanical arms which can carry out extremely delicate maneuvers such as cutting or removing debris. Once all the elements are tested, the vehicle is lowered into the water for a final check. These videos were filmed at a depth of 1,000 meters. They reveal a very different world, and one that remains largely unexplored. Scientists say we know less about these places than the surface of the moon. Understanding how life develops at these depths is a key priority. At the French Institute for Ocean Science, minerals retrieved from the ocean floor are carefully examined.
We have several types of minerals. So the minerals rich in zinc are those in grey here, and those rich in copper are here in yellow. Within these minerals, we also have some invisible elements, including cadmium and selenium. Today, cadmium is used in photovoltaic cells and in solar panels.
These minerals are widely used in our day-to-day devices, such as electric batteries. However, knowing how much can be found on the seabed remains unknown.
Finding one sample or piece of rock that's enriched with one element doesn't mean that the entire area will be rich of that particular element. It's a bit like going to the beach and finding a euro in the sands. It doesn't mean that there's 10,000 euros worth of coins scattered across that beach.
Despite many unknowns, the race for deep-sea mining is already underway. Several major countries are already involved, including China, Russia, Japan, India, Norway, and Germany. Canadian-based firm The Metals Company has already set its sights on the business and carried out several mining trials on polymetallic nodules in the Pacific Ocean.
What we have just on 2 of our contract areas is a sufficient amount of nickel, copper, manganese, and cobalt to electrify 1/4 of the world's passenger vehicle fleet. The world is going to need a lot more of these metals to decarbonize.
However, deep-sea mining raises many environmental concerns, and there is growing debate as to whether it should be allowed. Back in France, this biologist is examining the different microorganisms found on the rocks sampled.
In this sample, I'm looking at the microorganisms that are of interest to me. Some, for instance, can be found in here, such as this one.
New microorganisms are constantly found on these rocks. The biologist fears that their exploitation could result in environmental damage and major loss of biodiversity.
These nodules are already present at the bottom of the Atlantic Ocean. Well, it's the slowest form of geological evolution on the planet. They take several thousand years to form, and some organisms live attached to these nodules. The presence of this hard substance is what allows life to survive in places where it usually would not be able to.
There are fears that an entire ecosystem could be at risk. These videos show the damage caused by a deep-sea expedition some 25 years ago. Scientists fear that the industry could turn into yet another threat for our oceans.
FanZone, your reliable, authentic supplier, has just gotten better. You can now visit our website www.fanzonett.com for your authentic wear and collectibles. The only place where you can use both your Visa debit and credit cards. Visit our website fanzonett.com to make your purchase today.
People really want to know, what about me? Where do I fit? Yes. What is in the ride for me in terms of a better Trinidad and Tobago? And I'm pleased to shed some light on that.
The purpose of bail is to ensure your attendance at court. That's it. It is not punitive, it is not rehabilitative.
We the police officers, we are professional and we are here for whenever the survivor is ready to come forward.
We have the right to private and family life, the right to religious freedoms and beliefs and thoughts and expression. But these rights are not absolute. Certain rights can be limited.
The law is to govern the whole, is for all of us in public.
Join me, Dr. Nalini Kokram, on What's Up Doc, where we discuss all your burning questions concerning health.
Trinidad and Tobago is among one of the highest risk group of patients that develop this form of genetic breast cancer.
What I'd like to take home from a short interview like this, screening. You must screen.
Because it's silent.
It's silent.
Yeah.
And because it's silent, you don't know it's there.
What's Up Doc, every Tuesday and Thursday on WESN, Content Capital.
Enigmatic, extraordinary, extravagant. Their palaces worthy of every superlative, both homes and works of art.
The results of the boundless imagination of their creators, misunderstood geniuses.
Like in Haute-Rive in the Drôme region, where the postman Cheval's ideal palace proudly sits. Every year, almost 200,000 visitors try to unravel its mysteries.
There's a real mixture, a host of things which are completely eccentric, but which work wonderfully well together.
Neither an architect nor a sculptor, Ferdinand Cheval was a humble postman back in the 19th century. Every evening after his round, he carted in blocks of stone and gradually built his ideal palace. It would take him 33 years to complete his unclassifiable work of art.
Here we have a kind of monumental column with the head of a centaur, then 4 small columns beneath holding everything up. The restorers of the palace always say, we've no idea how the whole thing holds together. It defies the laws of gravity.
An architectural enigma, populated by animals and mythological figures, evoking the temples of the Far East. An imaginary journey inspired by the illustrated magazines of the time or the postcards that the postman Cheval delivered.
This is the gallery, which is the wonder of wonders. It's filled with sculptures. The decoration is quite extraordinary. Here are some birds, and here's seashells laid back to front to emphasize their imprint.
The work was met with mockery during its creator's lifetime, before later appealing to the surrealists and artists like Picasso.
The ideal palace still raises questions and inspires artists today. This comic book author never tires of sketching it, down to its finest details.
Sketching it is also a way of understanding it and grasping the giddiness he must have felt. You lose yourself in it. You don't understand everything, but it literally transports you elsewhere. It's an enigma, and I find it extremely poetic.
The postman Cheval wanted to make his mark, and today his palace is a listed historical monument. Another region, another enigma in stone, in the middle of the fields of Mayenne in northwest France.
Here's a palace museum defended by a dragon and creatures that filled the childhood of the artist, Robert Tatin. His work now fascinates 40,000 visitors a year.
It's a chimney. You can imagine the smoke coming out. So that's the first element, fire.
It's fabulous. I didn't expect to see so many different things, such a wealth in such a small place.
Have you grasped his artistic approach?
Oh, not completely. It's quite hard work because there's so many codes to decipher. It's really very complex.
To better understand this artistic vision, one needs to look into Robert Tatin's life. He studied at the Paris School of Fine Art. He also worked as a carpenter, a painter, and later a potter. A disconcerting self-taught sculptor, he handled the chisel with the same ease as he handled the paintbrush in philosophy.
Là aussi, il y a un univers dans le front du bonhomme. Là, il y a un univers, mais là, il y en a un autre univers. Là, il y en a encore un autre. Mais c'est tout le même univers. Il y a qu'un seul univers.
His home, now part of the museum, has been left untouched since his death in 1983.
From his painting studio to his bathroom, the slightest little detail was designed by the artist.
There was no real distinction between his artist's life and his daily life. He often called himself un ouvrier, a worker who produces artworks, because to him, there wasn't such a big difference between an artist-painter and a painter-decorator.
Nutty ouvriers, architects of uninhabitable homes. Mightn't they be trying to fit a square peg into a round hole? That's certainly not the case with the designer of the Palais Bulle. On the French Riviera, this bubble-like architectural curiosity is definitely a livable home. And here's its entrance.
Everything moves and everything's round.
This is the work of Antti Lovag, a Finnish avant-garde architect who moved to the Riviera in the 1970s. He drew the plans for the Palais Bulle, then sold the house to top designer Pierre Cardin. He used it as a source of inspiration.
Elle est faite comme un corps humain. Si vous voyez, tous les couloirs sont les artères, ce sont les voyous, ce sont les veines. Il y a un cerveau, il y a un cœur.
The Palais Bulle is no longer inhabited today. It's Jean-Pascal S. who's in charge of keeping the place alive. 2,000 square meters, or should I say round meters, of inhabitable surface, and windows everywhere to let in light.
It was the very principle of the bubble house. Organic architecture with this window looking onto the overflowing swimming pool. In fact, it was the first overflowing pool on the Riviera.
Off the corridors, 12 suites set out like alcoves with perfectly adapted furniture and fittings.
Every suite has a round bed with a round toilet, a round hand basin, and a round bath. Everything is round.
For those who are looking to buy, since Pierre Cardin's death, the Palais Bulle is up for sale. It's valued at 400 million euros, making it one of the most expensive villas in the world. But first and foremost, a priceless artist's palace.
At the heart of the Himalayas lies a small country. Landlocked between India and China, Bhutan is a mountainous region with around 750,000 people living there. It is also one of the few carbon-negative countries in the world and claims to absorb more CO2 than it emits.
Follow me, we'll go up here on the left.
A success which can be linked to the country's forests, vast green lungs which absorb carbon emissions. They make up around 70% of its land and are protected by the country's constitution.
Look around you. Our country knows how to protect its forests. All of this is thanks to our hard work. These trees are the source of life. They absorb pollutants such as carbon and release oxygen.
To get its carbon-negative footprint, Bhutan absorbs its emissions but also tries to actively limit them. Electricity production in the country is not derived from fossil fuels, but is instead 100% sourced from hydraulic power.
Yeah, this is our reservoir.
Sonam Wongdi is responsible for one of the country's 5 dams.
So whatever water comes, we block it here and then we divert it to the tunnel.
Thanks to hydraulic power, Bhutan leads the way when it comes to renewable energy.
You can say that the fuel we use is water, so it's very clean. Any country can go for hydropower. Like I said, you need those river and landscape. That we have.
Bhutan prides itself on being carbon negative, but for how long? With a growing population, carbon emissions are set to rise. Here in Thimphu, the country's capital city, the number of cars has increased dramatically these past few years. Authorities have taken drastic action by introducing electric cars to convince drivers.
Hello,
The government's plan involves giving taxi drivers subsidies. This taxi driver has just made the switch.
So we are getting almost around 4 lakhs from the government, and the rest will be in loan, almost 18 lakhs. This is good for to future to reduce the carbon dioxide, no? So to pollution.
Away from the city, Bhutan's villages also want to make the environment a key priority. In this village council, such questions dominate the agenda.
We recently fined someone who was caught littering plastic.
Bhutan wants to keep sustainable development as the cornerstone of its culture.
We're very fortunate to live in a country which has put in place measures for the long term, so that we remain respectful towards the environment. We're not allowed to pollute our soils, and our forests are preserved. This is what differentiates Bhutan from other countries.
To reduce its emissions, the country also regulates tourism by imposing a tax of €200 per day to all foreign visitors.
WESN.
Good day and welcome to this week's episode of Strictly Legal on WESN Content Capital. I am your host, Rondell Dono, attorney at law. Once again, I'm happy to be alive. I'm happy to bring the law and you. Of course, you can stream us on the traditional media as well as our social media, WESN CC on all our platforms. Especially, you can also listen to us at Strictly Legal with RondellDonowa.com. The last week, of course, you would have been very, very excited actually to view one episode about medical malpractice with Mr. Robin Otway, who is an attorney at law, and he's very experienced in the field of medical legal practices. And of course, last week we recapped basically about what is medical negligence, what are the consequences of such negligence, what are the tests, right, that one uses to establish whether a doctor or hospital has been liable for such negligence, as well as some of the damages. Of course, time was obviously beyond us, and we had to now bring him back for another episode, or for part 2 of the legal implications of medical malpractice. And Mr. Otway is no stranger to the field, and of course I will welcome him back. Robin, good day. How are you?
Fine, thanks. Great to be here, Rondell. Enjoy the exercise.
And great to have you as well. I know, as you said, it's very hot in Mexico at the moment.
It is where I am. Northeast Mexico, temperatures get up high 40s.
Wow.
48. It's not unusual. Sometimes at night, 10 o'clock, it's like 32, 33.
Well, at least we could be grateful at least for our humid weather here. But
it's dry. Semi-desert, really.
Yes.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, thank you for making the effort to sit with us again. Just a recap in terms of medical negligence. Could you just bring out just a recap in terms of the definition of what is negligence?
As I defined it early last week, a doctor is required to practice up to the standard expected of a reasonably competent practitioner in the particular field, and I gave examples of the GP and the obstetrician gynecologist, and that in any procedure recommended, which could include taking particular pharmaceuticals, drugs is a bad word these days, therapy, surgery in particular, the practice that is, the procedure that is recommended must be one that is approved by a responsible body of medical opinion. Those are the two basic tests.
And of course, you know, we've delved quite extensively into exactly, as you said, the tests and various examples. But of course, we want to touch on, we want to continue the discussion. More importantly, the question of a doctor who has performed a surgery or surgical procedure, whatever it may be, on a patient, whether it is in private or a public health facility, and something happened to that patient, whether they has now become disabled or they had died. Who exactly is responsible?
Okay, that is a particular, as a good cook, a particular, something special or specific about medical negligence. A simple example, agency is where, in everyday life, for example, a real estate agent, I'm going to compare a real estate agent with a building contractor. The real estate agent asks how I instruct him. I may tell him a particular price for my house. He may come back with a lower price, but he has no authority to accept it unless I tell him to accept. The building contractor, you don't tell him how to build a foundation or install the electrics and plumbing, etc. He uses his independent and expert decision-making, independent expert mind. Now, the doctor, particularly the surgeon, nobody tells him wherever he's employed, whether it's government hospital or in a private institution, the doctor, surgeon exercises his own professional judgment. But the precedents, the cases decided that where the doctor, for example, in a public health institution, in a government hospital, the patient does not choose the doctor. So the institution is relied upon to ensure that a reasonably competent surgeon is practicing within its four walls. So within a government hospital, the surgeon or other doctor, whoever be a nurse or anyone makes a mistake that affects a patient, the government hospital is individually liable. Normally, if you're bringing an action like that, you bring it against the hospital and the doctor. That's a normal practice. Everybody who could be liable. Now, with the private clinic, it's different. It is normally different where surgery is involved.
No, just pause a bit. Sorry about that. So you're saying that in public institutions, the hospital is the one that will be the liable party, basically.
The hospital is liable for the doctor's mistakes, but he is also individually liable.
Certainly. And now we are getting into private institution where as you said, it may differ.
Yes. Okay. Now, in the private institution, normally if I'm going for an operation, I have chosen my doctor. I want a particular doctor. I'm paying good money, so I choose. I want a surgeon of my choice to operate upon me. And surgeons will operate at different private institutions where they have what they call privileges, the right to use their facilities. They have an arrangement, let's say, with St. Clair or West Shore or Medical Associates or wheresoever. So if I choose my doctor and my doctor makes a mistake, my doctor is responsible for his mistake, not the private institution who did not choose the doctor. Now, I may go into a private institution in an emergency where an accident and emergency doctor whom I have not chosen, but is put there by the private institution, he makes a mistake, then the clinic is, like the government hospital, the private institution is responsible for the doctor they have chosen and who happens to treat me in a situation like that. Hope that's clear enough.
So is it that, if, as you said, if I choose a doctor and the doctor has elected, or let's say the doctor is whether it's an independent consultant at a particular private institution, the doctor is held liable. However, if I let's say I retained the institution itself to perform the surgery, then is it the institution is liable?
If the institution is the one that has put the doctor in place to carry out the procedure.
Okay.
Supposed to be choosing my doctor to do the operation upon me in a private setting, not a government hospital. When I go into the government hospital, I take whatever doctor is on duty who will perform the surgery upon me. I may be lucky enough to get a doctor I like, but I haven't chosen the doctor.
But then let's say you choose the doctor and it is not the doctor's fault, but it's the facility. Let's say there has been some defective equipment, because obviously the doctor is just there to use his skills, which is his hand. But in terms of the equipment,
it's not always the doctor's fault. Sometimes there may be, sometimes it could be a nurse making an error in terms of when medicine is administered. Post-surgery, it can happen. The clinic, private institution may not have certain equipment or may not use the equipment when they should have used it. Okay, so the clinic will exercise its own judgment, particularly with post-operative care. After an operation, the nurses have to monitor, they have to check vital signs, blood pressure, breathing, etc., pulse. And if they don't do that properly, then they could be liable.
I totally get you. So in terms of investigation, let's say, for instance, you are now to investigate that particular, who is liable? How can one proceed to that investigation? Is it that you now have to retain an expert, as we will now get into?
I gave examples the last time of what may be obvious. For example, I go in to have my right leg amputated or below the knee amputation on the right, and they do it on the left. Okay, that's obvious. You don't need an expert to say the doctor should not have done this. I gave another example of what I call the retained object, where something is left inside a patient during the surgery. You know, there are pads put in. There are cases when even metal objects have been left in, which of course is obvious. It may not manifest until sometime after, but the surgeon cannot get away. It's his responsibility to ensure that objects inserted, put into the patient's body are removed. He will have a nurse normally who will count, and in the highest form of practice, there's a blackboard and they note the things that go in and they make sure they come out. But the surgeon is responsible if that is not properly done. The clinic could also be responsible, institution could also be responsible, should be. But where the medical legal area, I would describe as very complex. So in the normal medical legal case you're suing your doctor or clinic or hospital, you will need an expert input, because it's not always black and white. You know, a patient may die on an operating table, but it may be that they had some problem with their heart or something. I mean, before a patient goes in for an operation, both the surgeon and the anesthetist must take a proper history. But if the patient doesn't say, look, or the patient will be unaware they have a heart issue, and you die on the operating table, sadly. So you need an expert to review all the medical records. You will give them the history, the client's statement, and you want an expert opinion, because the case will normally stand or fall. You may be successful or not at the end of the trial based on expert evidence.
And of course, that expert evidence, as we would have discussed, it's obviously, as you would say, expert is someone who is familiar or who has particular experience in that area of medical practice.
A doctor.
Yes, a doctor, basically. No, I note that, and I would have also stated that, you know, sometimes, at least in Trinidad, there's a perception that medical practitioners, particularly doctors, they pick up for one another, right? So in terms of getting that particular medical expert to testify against another another institution or doctor, because I mean most times you find that doctors, whether in their private practices, they would interchange in terms of the facilities that they practice in. So how do you circumvent, or how do you avoid having such an issue where doctors are not cooperating, rather?
Yes, I mean, it is a problem. I would not deny that. Now, it is not that you cannot find doctors within Trinidad and Tobago who are prepared to testify against other doctors. It may be common with someone who may say is retired, but there is that kind of, if I may call it, brotherhood or sisterhood, a collegiality. They are afraid of getting blackballed within the medical profession. You know, their colleagues don't like them anymore, don't trust them, and often they know each other well. So not always, but let me say that I have seen Trinidad doctors testify against Trinidad doctors. It's rare. In complicated cases, you normally look for an expert outside of Trinidad and Tobago. I have spoken to a doctor in Barbados who is willing to help. But from my experience, the norm is you look to the United Kingdom, you look to Britain, where you will find many experts. There are actually companies there. I know of one called Foresight, which provides medical expertise. They have like a panel of doctors, and you want an area, let's say, of obstetrics, gynecology, they will have an expert gynecology. And these are normally semi-retired or retired doctors who frequently testify in court. So they will offer their services, but it comes at a price.
Yes, and that price can be very, it can be very high, basically.
Yes, the first step, the recommended first step, and the really wise thing to do, the prudent thing to do, safe, is to get an opinion from an expert where the case has some complexity before you file the action, because you may file an action and later regret it. So the first step is to request a written opinion. You want it in writing. And a written opinion in a recent case of about 2 years ago from the United Kingdom cost from an experienced doctor who has both experience in medical practice and in testifying. And that's a particular area. You want a doctor who can testify, who's articulate, who can withstand cross-examination, etc. But an opinion from such a doctor costs £3,500. You get an opinion, you cannot tell the doctor to give you the opinion you want. So the opinion may be unfavorable to the case.
And I mean, but obviously that would now basically build or form a parameter as whether or not your case is strong and whether or not you should move forward, yes, rather than going in with a blindfold and you end up spending more monies by virtue of having to pay your legal team plus cost to the other side, and if you fail in your bid, in your litigation bid.
Now, I have taken the chance, you know, over the years, I've got to know doctors, I've defended doctors, I've sued doctors. But in a case where I was bringing an action against a doctor, I called a friend in particular, a doctor friend, experienced doctor, in the particular field, and he said, look, boy, I'm not going to testify against this doctor because we work together all the time. So I said, look, meet me for a Chinese meal and I'll get some information from you. And so we were eating Chinese food and I was writing down his points. I took the chance there because it may be that when we got the expert opinion from the doctor who was prepared to testify, he may not agree with my doctor, my friend. But that is risky.
Indeed it is, but in terms of the expert, obviously you are now before the court, and then you have attorneys questioning you based on certain evidence or certain exhibits that were provided. Now, in terms of the attorney or their line of questioning, Obviously, an attorney is an attorney who has knowledge and experience in law, and then a doctor is a doctor who has his experience in medical field. How does the attorney get the proper evidence out from a medical practitioner if that attorney basically does not really understand the medical terminologies, etc., or medicine on a whole?
He or she will have to make sure that they do understand in a particular area. And of course, the defense, the lawyers representing the doctors or the hospital will get their own expert advice. I think it would be reckless to be cross-examining a doctor in a complex area of medical legal, and you don't have an idea, a good idea or good understanding of the particular area of practice the case involves. So you have to get your advice from your side's own experts and prepare your cross-examination of the doctor accordingly. Cross-examination can be a rough thing.